Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit more low-key. It's actually nighttime right now. It's probably hard for you to be able to tell that, but I enjoy making these night videos from time to time. It's a lot more quiet in the house. It's a lot less likely that I'll be disturbed or bothered in any way. So I just kind of like the vibe of these and just kind of making them and everything. It's been a crazy day for me. A lot of work going on right now. So I have a full-time job on top of doing this YouTube channel and everything. So just really busy right now. I have a lot of projects going on and just a lot of family stuff going on. So, but anyway, this video, I wanted to talk about music that I listen to while I'm doing my design work. And just about all the time, I'm always listening to music while I'm designing. Almost always. It's very rare that anybody will, kind of walk into my office and see me not wearing my headphones. So anyway, I wanted to share the music that I listen to with you, just in case you kind of need some ideas and everything. Music is so subjective that I would never actually say this is what you should be listening to, because music, like I said, it's subjective. You could get inspiration and kind of get in a vibe and in a mood from whatever it is that you're into. But maybe just kind of going through these and everything, it'll kind of give you an idea of the kind of grooves and everything that I get into. So I'd like to cover two different areas of my life. One of them being my teen years when I started doing design work. So that was about 25 years ago. And also now, the current period of my life, the music that I listen to now. I would say that for the most part, they're kind of similar. There's a lot of overlapping that goes on. But when I was younger, it was a lot more, rock, 80s, 90s, and everything like that. Some things, kind of a little bit more ethereal and more new agey type of stuff. And even now, still have a pretty good amount of that. So it's a good mix of everything. So anyway, if this video ends up being helpful, educational, informative to you, whatever it might be, please give it a like to help me with my channel. And I never ask anybody to do this, or at least I don't really anymore, but click on the bell because it will notify you whenever I do upload another video. So it's beneficial to you. So it's a good thing. Help support the channel. I appreciate it. So the first area of my life, or first time in my life that I want to talk about, are my teen years. This is when I first started doing design work, and even before I started doing design work, I loved music. I've loved music since I was probably going as far back as being in the womb. Very likely, because both of my parents loved music, and my dad was an audio engineer back in the 80s, so I was really raised around just great music constantly. I was always exposed to it. And then, right around the time that, I was like 12, 13, around that time, I was exposed to my generation's music. So I had a really good mix of music before I kind of entered my generation around that time period. So I'm going to grab some water real quick because I'm already getting a little bit dry over here. So the first thing that I want to talk about, the first band that I want to talk about, is my favorite band of all time. So my favorite band of all time is Tears for Fears. And I know that some people will probably laugh at that. If you are not laughing, then that means that you kept listening past the Seeds of Love era. If you did do that, if you kept on listening past Seeds of Love, you'll know that there were several more albums released. And I even have The Tipping Point, which is their current album. In my opinion, Tears for Fears is the most solid band that I've ever heard in terms of their body of music. Going from the first album's release all the way up to The Tipping Point, what was that, a little over 2 years ago? Every song is solid. All of them are not skippable. So just fantastic music through and through. I don't want to talk about every single album, but obviously we've got Songs from the Big Chair. That is a huge one. And also The Seeds of Love right here. I actually don't have the cover of this, very embarrassingly. The cover is actually in a picture frame, and I was wanting to put them up behind me right here, but I'll put it up on the screen. And then also Elemental and Raoul and the Kings of Spain, Yeah, that's I had to check to make sure that was in there. And Saturnine, Marshall, and Lunatic. So obviously around that time period, this was the most current album that was actually released. Nothing was released past this around, like the late 90s and everything. And I think the next album that came out was 2004. So that was Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. Also a great album. But everything that, I'd listened to everything up to that point. The Hurting, I was also really listening to a lot during that time. But I would say that if I had to pick one that I was listening to the most, it would be The Seeds of Love. And that one is overall my favorite Tears for Fears album. So what is it about Tears for Fears music that is so helpful when you're doing design work? I think that, first off, the creativity behind all of the music in Tears for Fears really helps with the creativity while you're designing. So hearing all of these different types of genres, even on one album, like when you're going from one track to the next, on almost all of these albums, there is a cohesion there, but there's also a lot of changes. There's a lot of, it's very dynamic, and there's just a lot of variety of the music itself. And that's what I think is very helpful when it comes to, kind of getting those creative juices flowing. And Tears for Fears, in my opinion, like I said, it's my favorite band overall, but definitely one of the best one of the best bands with the best body of work. Just solid from start to finish. You really can pick any album and just jump right in, and you're not going to hear anything bad. Obviously some albums are better than others. I would say it would be impossible for me to rank them. I really don't know which one would be my lowest one. I know what my favorite one is. That's The Seeds of Love, but I don't know what I would rank as the lowest, because I would have to say that this one's the worst of the bunch, but there isn't really one. There's not a bad one of the bunch. So anyway, enough of me glazing on Tears for Fears. Great band, and really, when it comes to their discography, if you haven't listened to anything past The Seeds of Love, I know around that time a lot of people really tuned out with them. Because Kurt Smith left the band, and then Roland, he kind of carried on that name, and then he did Elemental and Raoul and the Kings of Spain, both very solid albums, and he kept the name there. So really great music, and if you're looking for something a little bit different, their music has, some of their music has a real 80s vibe. Everything they did in the 90s, in my opinion, they got away from that 80s sound, and it sounds very timeless, in my opinion. It doesn't sound like something that you're like, oh, this obviously came out of the 90s. So really good stuff, and I highly recommend that you check out really any Tears for Fears at all. So next one up is going to be Toto. They're specifically this CD, the past to present, 1977 to 1990. And it's a fantastic mix. Obviously, it doesn't cover everything from Toto, like the band overall, but it does cover a huge majority of their best songs. So obviously, you've got Africa on here, and Rosanna, and those were probably their two biggest hits, I would say, like those two specifically, Africa and then also Rosanna. But it also has things like Hold the Line, Can You Hear What I'm Saying, Pamela, I Love Pamela, Stop Loving You, I Won't Hold You Back. What's great about this particular collection of music is it's kind of all over the place. It starts off with a really nice upbeat, energetic song. Then it goes into Africa, which is a lot more like low key and everything. It's got like some really nice soothing vibes and everything. And then it's like a roller coaster. It's a really good handling of all of their best tracks up to this point. So really solid, and really good for changes. Changes is really good when you are doing any kind of design work. So any music that either changes a lot or kind of has a very almost like mono type of feel. I don't know exactly what the word would be for that, but just like a nice consistent feel all the way through that doesn't jar you too much. Those are the two categories that I like to stick with when it comes to listening to music while I'm doing design work. But really good stuff. And also, like I said, my dad was an audio engineer, so obviously he's going to have some Toto in his collection. And this is actually the CD that I listened to. This particular one right here, I don't think he knows that I have this. Like, I've had it for a long time. Next one up is a very, very obscure CD. It's called Cinema Sampler, and I'll hold it right there so you can see that. And this actually, now, if I hadn't had this one particular friend back in the late 90s, I never, ever would have heard about this particular CD, because I've never heard anyone talk about it ever since then. But there was a theme park in Nashville called Opryland, and the roller coaster that I loved there the best was called Chaos, and it was an inside roller coaster, and it was very heavily themed, and it had music that played every time you went in, and that song is actually on this CD. And there's another song by the same artist. The song is called Bones on the Beach by Michael Hoenig. It's just really cool music. So the album overall, this is kind of like a different sampling of music that's kind of similar to that. So like it's for the most part, mostly instrumental. So you're getting a lot of instrumental type of stuff, and it's, very late 80s, early 90s type of stuff. So it's kind of all over the place in terms of the synths and everything. So very synth heavy, like a lot of synthesizers, keyboards, things like that. But if you're wanting something with that type of vibe, kind of like that, what you would call retro wave vibe now, definitely check this out. I don't even know if you can stream it or anything, but you can find the track listing and then put together your own playlist on Spotify or something. Really cool stuff. Another one of our favorite bands, me and my dad, around this time was Heart. And well, I don't want to say in my opinion, but this is my favorite Heart album. So if you're wanting just pure 80s awesome music, this is the one to go for, I think. There's not a bad track on this album, and like obviously it's it's a lot more commercial, a lot less instrumental, new agey, or ethereal or ambient or anything like that. So you're going to get a very consistent sound from track to track on this. And during that time, like the mid to late 90s when I was designing, I just loved listening to this album. So really good stuff. My favorite song on here, my favorite two favorites on here are Never and These Dreams, and those are right next to each other on the CD. So really good stuff there. Another one here is also a very obscure CD, is Republica, and I actually just saw, I think it was a few days ago actually, they were listed on a list of one of the best Britpop bands. And it's funny because I never really thought of them as a Britpop band. But even if you don't know this album cover, even if you don't know the name Republica, you do know Ready to Go. So that song, you've definitely heard it. But it's funny actually, very few people actually gave this album a try. It is a very interesting and very unique album. And it does have another one on there that was a hit, not as obviously not as big as Ready to Go, but Drop Dead Gorgeous was the other big single on this. But what's really cool about this album is that it's really all over the place, and I love albums that are like that. I love albums that are just straight up roller coasters. So you never know what you're going to run into with this, and it's also really good for design work. So next one up is MCMXC AD. Also known as 1990 by Enigma. You cannot see the cover right now. I don't know why I'm holding this up, but I'll put it up on the screen. I listened to this constantly when I was probably 14, 15 years old. I had my own, I had my own personal, what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Personal portable CD player. That's what it was. And so I had that, and I was always listening to this particular album. What's so awesome about this album is, again, very type of roller coaster type of album, but it's a headphones album. There's so much to hear while you're listening to this album, and it's a wonderful journey and experience of music. And it's something that you definitely need to make sure that you have time to listen to from start to finish. And it's fantastic to listen to while designing because your mind can just kind of unplug and let loose. And you can just really let yourself kind of drift. And you can really get in a great groove while you're listening to this album. And if you like this album, then definitely check out the rest of Enigma. I feel like I've talked to so many people over the years that never went past this album, and I'm like, you have no idea what you're missing out on. Now, I know a lot of critics out there will say, well, a lot of it is, kind of the same old, same old. Well, maybe to a certain extent, but you haven't really taken a deep dive into the rest of the albums if you feel that way about Enigma. So, really good stuff, and I think that overall, like their body of discography, or his body of discography, it's one person, is really, really great music. So definitely something to check out. I would definitely move it really high to the list. I don't know if I'd put it at number 1, but really high toward the top of the list for doing design work. So another water break. Okay, next up, also another album cover that is not in the jewel case, but I'll put it up on the screen. This is That Dog Never... what am I saying? Retreat from the Sun. I almost said Never Say Never, which is my favorite song off of this album. So this is another obscure one they had. I guess some people may call it a one-hit wonder. Never Say Never, I would imagine was their biggest hit from this album. They had some other hits too, like they had some singles that they played on MTV, Old Timer and He's Kissing Christian, both of those, but those are not from this album. This album right here is a very, very solid album from start to finish. If you were a fan of Weezer, it's kind of like Weezer, like a little bit, but with a female lead singer. So definitely check this out if you were into Weezer, and then going a little bit more obscure if you were into the Rentals, and then this would be one more level down of obscurity. So great band. Really great albums overall. Definitely don't just check out this one. Check out all of their other albums. They had 2 before this one, and then they put one out in 2019 called Old LP, and that's actually a really good one too. I haven't listened to it nearly as much as this one though. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. I would say definitely in my top 10, and it's one that in my years, I just turned 41 recently. I've only ever met one other person who knew who That Dog was. So really great stuff. Great music all the way through. Okay, another one. Now, my dad was an audio engineer, and so he grew up in the 60s and 70s and everything. So obviously he's going to have a lot of Beatles in his collection. And he had... I believe he had every Beatles album, but the one that I always listened to the most was A Hard Day's Night. And so this one right here, very solid. I know that a lot of people would kind of rank this kind of in the mid category of of all of the Beatles like studio albums. I don't even know if you would technically consider this a studio album because it's a soundtrack. But this particular one right here was always my favorite overall. And I would say too that like I listened to this way more than I ever did any of their other albums, because I didn't get fully into discovering the rest of the Beatles music until much later on in life. We're talking like 2009, 2010. And I just had no idea what I was missing out on. And I was like, geez, like this is crazy. So like now, like I would say that now, I don't really listen to a lot of Beatles while doing design work specifically. But like if I'm doing something like cleaning around the house or driving especially, Beatles is definitely something that I listen to. So, but this particular album here, I listened to a lot of this album. The production on it is just amazing. So really good, like dynamic flow going through the entire album. You never know what you're going to get type of thing. And, I love albums like that. Okay, this next one up, if you were around in the late 90s, this is probably going to make you laugh. But yeah, okay, I'm still recording. I had to make sure this camera can be a little crazy sometimes. So this might make you laugh a little bit. But this is Chumbawamba's, what is it? Is it Tub Thumper? Yeah, because the name of the song, like I always get the two confused. There's Tub Thumper and then Tub Thumping. Most people did not listen to the rest of this album past the first track. Obviously, Tub Thumping was a huge hit. Even if you don't know this album cover, if you don't know the band, you know Tub Thumping, you've heard it. So I would wager a lot of money that you've heard that song. But this is a very strange album. Very strange. And the rest of the album sounds nothing like the opening track, at least in my opinion. Like, there's a couple of very catchy type of songs on here, but there's nothing that really sounds like that opening song. And you feel like, kind of feel like, you know, like a bit of a bait and switch type of thing, which I totally get. I totally understand. I've known people that bought this album thinking that they were getting an album full of tub thumping, you know, but I mean, that's extremely rare. So I don't know why people, like, you know, like now, especially, like, you know, you kind of come to expect that, you know, it's like the rest of the album is not going to sound like that one song that you love, you know, like they put that together as a single and they're like, all right, we're going to lead this album with that single and everything. But if you actually bought it like I did and listened to the rest of it, if you go into it kind of with an open mind, it's kind of how I feel about the movie Lady in the Water. It's like, just let things happen, you know, like, just let things happen. Whatever the album throws at you, just let it happen and just go with it. But it is very, very strange. But I've always loved it, though. I've always loved it. And anything that is constantly changing and doing all these really weird things. They've got these weird things that happen at the end of the songs that kind of lead into the next songs and everything. Just really weird. And I don't know, for some reason, I just love weird albums. So that's one that I always listen to. Okay. These next two I'll show together, Pure Moods 1 and 2. And this is, like, in my opinion, the perfect example of something that you just never know what you're going to go through. So obviously there's a theme to both of these, and it's new age music. And that's really your only theme. Like, these kind of have to tie into each other in some way, obviously, because they wouldn't, you know, otherwise they wouldn't have put all these different songs on a compilation CD like this. But the music that's on here is just beautiful. And because of the different types of music that you'll hear, that's why I think this is an excellent choice for doing design work, because you can just press play and just kind of let yourself get lost in this type of music. And you just never know what you're, you know, like, you just never know. Like, music can definitely spark creativity and imagination. It can even spark like elements that you can use in your design. For example, going back to Tears for Fears for a second, if you go and listen to the song Gas Giants, that is a very interesting song. There's this part, like, I think it starts like kind of in the middle or maybe like a minute in or something. It's kind of a short song, but there's these weird things. And my dad always explained it as like lights sparking. It's these weird sounds that come up, and it's like, if you close your eyes and kind of visualize what that would look like, it looks like little sparks of light going off. And I know that I have created that in Photoshop, like, just based on that individual song. It's like, oh, what does this look like? This, you know, there's this sound, but what would it look like if you translate it visually? Those types of things can happen when you're listening to music if you just kind of let it happen. And Pure Moods has so much, like, so many different types of sounds from different cultures all over the world that really can lend to your creativity, and you just never know what you're going to come across. So similarly, in the same vein, this will also make you laugh. Let me put these right here. Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, the soundtracks, okay? We're not talking about the movies here. That's an entirely different discussion. But the soundtracks to the Mortal Kombat movies from the 90s, in my opinion, are awesome. And again, like, very varied soundtracks where you kind of have this line of, like, you know, this kind of cohesive line of music and everything that you can expect to listen to while you're listening to this. Obviously some techno and some rock and some metal and things like that. So if you're into those genres of music, then definitely check out the soundtracks of the Mortal Kombat movies from the 90s, because, again, Roller Coaster, it's a combination of the music from the movie itself, so like the score of the movie. There's only a few of those that are actually on the soundtracks. But then a good mixture of, you know, rock, metal, techno, just really, really cool stuff on there. Fantastic albums. I guess, are they albums or are they just soundtracks? Next up is Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. And I will forever, like, be completely shameless and hold no guilty feelings for loving this album, because this is a concept album. So just about every song on here sounds very cohesive with each other, but they don't all sound the same. So this is a very solid album all the way through. And I'm not sure exactly what it was that got me into it specifically in my teen years, because like obviously I listened to this album when I was younger, like 6 or 7 years old, but I came back to it when I was probably around 14 or 15 and just listened to it a lot, played the heck out of this CD. So, that very cohesive theme, and like when you're designing something, that has a concept, I highly recommend listening to concept albums. So Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd's The Wall, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins. Those are the ones that kind of jump out to me like immediately. But listening to a concept album while you're designing a poster with a very unique concept, where you're trying, especially if you've got like a series of designs of, whether they're posters or whatever it is that you're putting together, if there is a cohesive theme there, then put on something that has like, put on an album that has like a concept to it, because that can actually help get your creative juices flowing there. Okay, next up, don't have the cover, but I'll put it up on the screen. Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop by Stone Temple Pilots. This is actually the only Stone Temple Pilots album that I own. And like, I know that that's really strange. I know you're probably going to come at me just for saying that, but this was kind of my introduction to them. I had never really heard anything prior to this album coming out. I did afterward, obviously, but this was my intro to them. And like Big Bang Baby was the first song I ever heard by them. And then like, obviously I did what everybody did back, like if you were a teenager at that time, it's like, oh, I want the CD because I want to listen to that song, But if you put this CD in and press play, and that's funny because the title of the first song is called Press Play. If you press play, you can tell like just in the opening that you're in for a journey. And again, just like I've said in, about multiple other albums in this particular video, is that I love albums that take you on a journey, where they kind of throw things at you that you don't really expect. And in my opinion, every song on this album is very solid all the way through. I don't skip any tracks when I listen to this all the way through. I listened to it when I was a teenager while designing, and I still listen to it today while designing. So very good stuff. Okay, this is the last album in the teenager stack, and I definitely wanted to include it because it is true, I did listen to this album a lot while designing when I was a teenager, and it is definitely a guilty pleasure, and you probably know what it is just by me just kind of giggling, but it is Vanilla Ice's To the Extreme. And I mean, what else can I say? I've probably lost half of you at this point, but I listened to this album constantly when I was younger, like when I was like, 10, like 9, 10, 11 years old, like around that time. And then didn't listen to it for several years and then came back to it much later on. Now, am I going to say that this is great music? I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is that this album is directly tied to my own personal memories from when I was younger. So obviously it has a lot of nostalgia for me, and I know that a lot of it is the nostalgia that's speaking. So, but for some strange reason, I would always put it on while doing design work. And I don't really know why that is. I'm not necessarily recommending it for design work specifically, but it is kind of a little all over the place, like in some senses. There are some songs on here like, Life is a Fantasy. I Love You, which is like quite a song. Very, just very different from the rest of the album itself. So maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe just the fact that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just came back and revisited it, and it just made it into the rotation. So there's that. But anyway, so now let's move on. This next stack is a lot shorter, and I promise not to. Well, I don't know if it's a lot shorter, but it is a little bit shorter. But I'll try not to spend way too much time like diving into it, just like, like I did with my teen years. So anyway, now let's move on to music that I currently listen to while doing design work. And the first two that I want to talk about is Scott Cortez's bands Astro Bright and Love's Lies Crushing. So these right here, I've done several. I've done several videos on my channel with Astro Bright and Love's Lies Crushing as the subject matter for the design work. I have all of Astro Bright's CDs, not all of Love's Lies Crushing, but these are the two that I listen to. Here's the reflection. This is a very dark album cover, but this is Astro Bright's All the Stars Will Fall, and this is Love's Lies Crushing's Glisculi. I have no idea how to pronounce this, but these are the two that I listen to most often by these bands. And what's great about them is they're very ambient. So whenever I'm doing something where I have to like really go deep in the actual design, my screen is going dim, so let me press on that. There we go. Whenever I'm doing something where I have to like really do some deep design work where I'm going to be designing for 2 hours straight, I'll usually queue up these two albums to have them follow each other. So All the Stars Will Fall and Glisculi. What's really cool about both of them is that these are truly albums that you can really get lost in. And for the CD version, specifically for All the Stars Will Fall, if you can get a hold of the CD version, it's very difficult. But if you can get a hold of it, then it has like, I want to say 3 or 4 extra tracks. So if you stream it, it's like 45 minutes. But if you listen to the CD, it's like an hour. It's like a little over an hour. So like just a really great musical journey of listening to these, and it's just very ambient. And actually, I've seen several people say that this album scares them, and I can see why that is, because it does have a very spooky and mysterious sound to it. One person said that it reminded them of Flying Saucer Attack. I've listened a little bit to Flying Saucer Attack, and I definitely hear the resemblance there. So much for me not droning on and on about this right here. So let me rearrange this real quick because I kind of got these a little bit out of order. The next one that I want to talk about, I'll talk about all 3 of these right here. It's going to be kind of difficult for me to hold them up, but I'll try my best. Tool, Lateralis, Fear Inoculum, and 10,000 Days. So I came into Tool right around the Lateralis time period. Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Good. Wanted to make sure. Didn't want all of this work to go to waste. Anyway, so yeah, I came in right around the time of this Lateralis coming out. I was familiar with 1 or 2 songs off of Anima. I don't know how you say it. I was familiar with those, but like Lateralis was the first album that I like really got into. But even during that time period, I didn't fully explore the entire album from start to finish the way that you're supposed to listen to it. So, excuse me. So, and really didn't even come back to it until many years later, even though I've had this CD since I was, 18 when it first came out. And then 10,000 Days, I bought this at like 2006. I was working in a warehouse at the time. And even during that time, I only listened to like a handful of the songs and didn't really dive into the rest of them. Really, I didn't dive into Tool until like around the time that they announced Fear Inoculum, like in terms of really diving in, listening to all of the albums from start to finish, and just like absorbing the albums as they're intended to be listened to. Didn't really do that until much later on after I bought these 2 albums. But all of that to say, they're excellent for doing any kind of design work really whatsoever, especially if you're into heavier music. If you're into some heavier music, or like I say heavier music, I know that a lot of people out there would not consider Tool to be heavy music, but I do say heavier music. But anyway, I would say that probably my favorite to listen to out of all 3 of these for design work would be Fear Inoculum. And that's mainly because the songs are all long. All of the songs are 10 minutes long or longer. And it really does allow you to just kind of get lost in the soundscapes of what you're listening to. And that really helps when you're doing any kind of design work, or at least it helps me. So those 3 albums specifically, I do really enjoy Anima. I'm not as big on Undertow. I think that I like Deep Tool better than I like Angry Tool. So kind of that time period, like Lateralis going forward, but still very much like Anima. Next up is what I consider to be one of the best albums ever made, and that is The Cure's Disintegration. So this is an album that I was not at all familiar with until only a couple of years ago. I have owned the Cure album Wild Mood Swings. I got it when I was like 13. That was my introduction to The Cure. So that was what I thought The Cure sounded like for many, many years, and just never really explored anything beyond that until a few years ago, where I was like, you know what, I need to check out other music by The Cure. And unfortunately, I kind of started with Disintegration and had this, this expectation that all of their other albums sounded like this, and they don't. So they're about as checkered as, Weezer, or some would even say Oasis, even though I really like all of Oasis's work. Like, in my opinion, like you've got Definitely Maybe and Morning Glory. How do you follow those up? You just don't. You don't follow those up with albums that are as good. So in my opinion, like, just a little side note really quickly, not every album has to be Definitely Maybe, and not every album has to be Morning Glory. So they've got other really good albums. Obviously, some are better than others. Some are not as good as others, obviously. But from what I've heard, I like everything that I've heard from Oasis. So it's not exactly the case with The Cure, though. So to date, on CD, I still have Wild Mood Swings and Disintegration, and that's it. So I have tried a couple of their other albums and everything. They just don't grab me as much as Disintegration does. It is obviously a concept album. There is a cohesion that you can hear throughout the entire album, and it's just wonderful music. Some of the best I've ever heard, really. So fantastic album. Great for doing design work. If you've watched any of my videos for a good while, you know that I'm a huge shoegaze fan. And so My Bloody Valentine obviously has to be part of that as well. I would say that for driving, this one definitely is the winner. For designing, this one is the winner. So MBV definitely takes it for design work, because this one is just, in my opinion, cooler. It's a lot more chill. Even though it's got a lot of heavy stuff on there, but it's, it just really allows you to really get lost. And again, almost all of these albums that I've mentioned in this video, almost all of them are headphone albums, something you really want to put the headphones on and really listen to and absorb and listen to all of what's going on in there. And you can just hear new stuff every time you listen to these. MBV is like that. Just put the headphones on and you hear just an infinite amount of layers of music, and it's wonderful. Anything that helps me just kind of drone out everything that's going on and helps me focus on design work, that's what I look for, and MBV completely delivers on that. Next up is a shoegaze band called Glare. If you haven't listened to this, really, really excellent stuff. I actually almost got to see them when they came to Nashville. The night that they came was the one night that I was not able to go. I could have gone the night before, I could have gone the night after, but not the night they actually came. So that was very, very frustrating. This is their Heavenly EP, that's what it's called, and there are 5 songs on this, only 5 songs, but the songs on here are just unbelievable. Like, the sound on this is humongous, and I just love it. The opening track is great, and then my favorite is Floating. It's track number 2, and gosh, I just love it. I just love it so much. Another band that I want to mention that I don't have a CD for, because I don't think they've released any CDs yet. I'm not sure, at least not of this recording. Saw them earlier this year. It's a shoegaze band out of Texas called Glixen. They named their band after a Love Slice Crushing song. So if you haven't listened to them, definitely check them out. One of my favorites that I've heard recently, like within the past year or so. Phenomenal sound, and like they know what they're doing when it comes to making shoegaze music. Just awesome, and they're awesome people. I got to meet them, so that was really cool too. Next up, I've only got a few left in this stack here, and I think let's see, at least a few of them are going to be more shoegaze stuff. So these two right here, Deserta. Let me try to move these. This one is Black Aura, My Son, and this one is Every Moment, Everything You Need. You can't go wrong with either one of these. They do have different sounds, even though they're the same band. This one was recorded during the pandemic, and I know that I think it's Matt Doty. I think that's his name. Hopefully I didn't get that wrong. But from what I remember reading, he had to record it in his apartment in New York City. And I think something having to do with the sound of it. He did a lot of like very low singing, like in terms of volume, just to keep his voice down, basically, so he wouldn't disturb anyone around him. And it's just an amazing atmosphere on this album. As much as I love Black Aura, My Son, like it's so good. I think I might like this one better. So and plus I just love that album cover. I'll put it up so you can get a better look at it. All right, just as I feared, my camera stopped recording, so I had to restart it again. But I'll pick up exactly what I was saying with these right here. This has just such an awesome atmosphere to it, the entire thing, all the way through and through. This is one of those albums where it sounds the way that the cover looks. So just really great stuff. If you're a shoegaze fan at all, definitely check out Deserta. I would say that they're probably more ambient than shoegaze technically, because they're not too heavy on guitars. It's a little bit more on synths and other instruments, even though they do use guitars, but just wonderful stuff. All right, next up is the band Pink Shiny Ultra Blast. And they were named after either Astro Bright or Love's Lies Crushing. I think it was Love's Lies Crushing, actually. There's a song called Pink Shiny Ultra Blast. This is a very mysterious band in terms of where they are now. No one really knows. So no one really knows what they're doing now. If they're going to be releasing any more music, have no idea. But I have all of their CDs that they released. This one by far is my favorite. I know that I'm kind of in the minority on that. Others like some of their albums, some of their other albums better than this one. But this one is by far my favorite one. And I would say that just really kind of starting off and everything from the first track, you know that you're kind of in for something. You're in for a good ride. But really good stuff. Very heavy, very heavy. Good for headphones, but don't turn it up too loud if you value your hearing. So, but really excellent for design work. All right, so I mentioned earlier Enigma. These are my two favorite Enigma albums to listen to while doing design work. This one, I can't pronounce this for the life of me, but the English translation is The King is Dead, Long Live the King. And then this one is The Fall of a Rebel Angel. So these two right here, and it's funny actually, because both, they're both Enigma. This one is definitely more of like an ambient type of album. Like a lot of the tracks are very ambient in the sound. And also very much a headphones. I mean, really, all Enigma albums are headphones albums, so put on your headphones and just listen. If you like the first album, the first Enigma album, definitely check out the rest. It's very likely that you'll like the rest of them. Okay, so I've only got a few left to discuss, and I'll just put both of these up at the same time. So this is Dan Gibson Solitudes, and both of them are Dan Gibson Solitudes, actually. If you're unfamiliar with the Dan Gibson series, definitely get familiar with it, because if you want pretty much anything that you want in terms of relaxing type of music, it's out there. Like anything in that series is great. Now, the only downside of it is that a lot of the albums are repackaged under different names and even have different track listings, like in terms of the track names. So, but these are my two favorites. This one is Illumination, and it's Peaceful Gregorian Chants. And this one is Ocean Odyssey. So very like ocean type of sounds and everything, whales, you know, like things like that, like ocean waves. Beautiful piano work here. This one is the Gregorian chants, so you have the chants and everything, and there's even a female chanter on here, and she is just wonderful. And it's combined with very soft piano playing and then some like cellos, and it's mixed with bird sounds and everything. Just really excellent. And like, you can, especially this one, you get really lost listening to this, and it's fantastic for doing any kind of design work. The last CD that I want to talk about is the album Hush by Slow Crush. Now, it depends on what I'm working on exactly, whether or not I actually listen to this album while doing design work. I just want to bring it up because I think it's the best shoegaze album that I've heard in the past maybe 2 to 3 years. It's kind of a concept album. Almost all the songs have a cohesive sound to it, but just, I mean, I'm just going to glaze on it. This is my favorite CD probably in this stack right here. Just wonderful from start to finish. I saw Slow Crush when they came to Nashville a couple of years ago. And I have to say, like, I've seen the Smashing Pumpkins, I've seen Aerosmith, I've seen Rolling Stones, I've seen some really great bands. I've never seen a show like that. So, and it was a very small venue, very small. Like, you walk in and like, it's very small. It's a very small venue. Like, you know, maybe you could fit 100 people in this place, maybe. But they put on that show as if they were in 100,000 seat arena. Like, I've never seen anything quite like it. And I liked them before I saw them live, but it made me listen to this album in a completely different light. If you're a fan of shoegaze, definitely make sure that you see Slow Crush if you get the opportunity, because I've never seen anything like that. And I don't know if they'll do the exact same show again or do something kind of similar. I really hope so, because it was just magical. Like, really, there's no other word to use to really capture that. So the only other one that I wanted to talk about that I don't actually have a CD for is Tycho. I actually made a video on this a couple of days ago on Tycho. So definitely check out Tycho if you ever want to listen to anything that's like really atmospheric and, you know, like just has like a very chill, even, calm vibe to it. Tycho is fantastic. There are so many albums, and really you can pick up any of them, and definitely check them out. There's one in particular. I'm gonna pull it up really quick so I can tell you specifically. This was actually the one that got me into Tycho, and that was Dive. Okay, so and I'll put it up here on the screen for you. So Dive by Tycho is awesome. The title track for Dive has this really long vocal intro. It's a female vocal. And that part, like, I restart it constantly just to hear that little vocal effect. It is just so awesome. And I don't actually have the CD anymore. I thought I did, but the album 90125 by Yes came out the year I was born. Also another fantastic album for just going all over the place. Like, you know, like starts off with a heavier song and then kind of goes into like a mid-tempo song, and it's everywhere. It's just everywhere. And the song Changes is really cool. Definitely listen to that one because the rhythm of the song changes in it. So like it's very, you know, very appropriate song title itself. So anyway, I need some water because I've been talking for a long time and I'm tired. Okay, so that is really just kind of like, and this really isn't everything. It's not everything that I listen to, but it's what I listen to the most. So I wanted to share it with you just in case you ever get into a funk and it's like, I need something to listen to while I'm doing some design work. Hopefully I gave you some ideas there. So what are some bands and like music and artists and everything? What do you like to listen to while you're doing design work? I'm always looking for suggestions. I'm always looking for new things to listen to. Obviously, I love music, so I'm kind of I'm also like a little bit all over the place with it. So I'm always open to newer stuff, any kind of new ideas. If I mentioned anything in this video that made you think, oh, you should check this out, definitely let me know down in the comments because I'd love to hear it. Okay, well, it's time. It is time for me to get off here, and I'm going to go lay down and relax because it's been quite a day. So I will end with saying thank you so much for making it through, making it to this part of the video. If you made it here, congratulations. You have listened to me chat way too much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. If you wouldn't mind, please leave a like on the video, hit subscribe to support the channel, and like I said earlier, click on the bell to get the notifications if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. So, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and this was fun. I hope I get to do something similar to this in the future. I'm always looking for ways to tie together music and design. So if you have any ideas like that, then let me know down in the comments below. All right, well, I will see you next time, and keep an eye out for the next video. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.